Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, we're continuing our series on what is fill-in-the-blank engineering, and this week we are looking at what is industrial engineering.
I really like this one. This one was, in my opinion, probably one of the better ones. I don't know.
You think so, huh?
I don't know. Like I know you said that this was a terrible one. Like you did like a semester abroad doing industrial engineering.
That's
or something
not
like
accurate.
that.
No.
You said something about industrial engineering at some point, and that's kind of what I determined you did.
That's
but
fair.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of process improvement type things involved with this. And
Oh, absolutely there is.
and I like making things better. I don't know about you, but I enjoy doing that sort of stuff. I feel like a lot of times they don't make anything new. They just make existing stuff better, which
Yeah.
I think is kind of cool, right?
I think that's exactly what they do a lot of the times. Or if you're my brother, who's an industrial engineer, you probably make things worse. So that wasn't nice. Sorry, Greg. I take it
Oh.
back.
Greggy
All right.
is going to be mad.
He will be. Did you call him Greggy?
I did.
Oh, okay. So quick story. Back in the day when we were young, my mom used to call him Greggy baby. So
Oh,
I
no.
would always be like, Greggy baby. Oh, I love you, Greggy baby. And to the point that he got so mad at me, he would just like beat on me. And he was older and bigger
Oh.
than me, so I didn't have much of a chance, but he
Well,
hated it.
I think most people are bigger than you.
That's-
just for the record.
That's fair. Okay, let's get
Pretty
into
easy
this.
to do. Okay, so
Luke-
fun fact before
Yeah,
we get started.
fun fact. Let's hear it.
So this cat by the name of Frederick Taylor,
Freddie.
he was born. Yeah, good old Freddie. He was born in 1856. Is generally credited with being the father of industrial engineering. He earned his mechanical engineering degree from Stevenson University and has a whole bunch of patents for inventions. We should probably pick him as maybe one of our inventors if you haven't checked
I
out
feel
one
like-
of those episodes.
Yeah, I feel like if you're the father of fill in the blank
Yeah.
anything engineering related, heck yeah.
Yeah, so he wrote a bunch of books on like shop management, the principles of scientific management, all published in the early 1900s. And these were like the foundation for what began industrial engineering. I thought that was kind of cool to be the father of an engineering discipline.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. So that was back during the Industrial Revolution, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So I saw that like in the early days of industrial engineering, it was like all about increasing efficiency and profitability of things that were going on in manufacturing operations. And since then, it's really continued down that line, but continuous inventions and developments of new machines and whatever else, power sources, things that get added in, have really changed or challenged the industrial engineers to find new applications to where they're useful. Like they've kind of really optimized a lot of the traditional workflows that are going on. So now they're finding new ways to optimize, either with implementing technology or, finding new places to work.
I think the other thing too that they seem to do a lot of is they like making a whole bunch of really cool acronyms that mean something. Like you want to be Six Sigma, you want to be lean, you want to be nimble with a K in there somehow, and it's just like they have all these acronyms for these process improvement techniques and practices and like once something's really good, how do you make it better, right?
Well, I think I think you're onto something where they keep doing this where it's like, oh, you need to get Six Sigma certified. You need to get ISO 9000 certified. And they keep like changing it a little bit so that they all stay employed and keep raking in that money. I think you're right about that.
I just got ISO 9024 certification.
Was that the food one?
No, I have no. I'm just making it up.
Oh, okay.
I am a certified food manager, safety handler, something.
I was going to say, I didn't know that was ISO. Okay, very cool. So a few of the early people that were big in the whole industrial engineering thing, people that were industrial engineers, Samuel Colt, he pioneered the assembly line.
Like Colt guns?
I don't know. I'm not quite certain.
Okay.
I kind of assumed that, but now that you mention it outright, I didn't actually look into it.
Okay.
Henry
okay.
Ford, if you haven't checked out our episode on old Henry Ford, go do that. That's pretty cool. He implemented the assembly line for the automobile manufacturing, so we all know about Ford because
Mm-hmm.
you've listened to our episodes on it. And then there's another guy, I don't know how to say his name. We'll call him Mr. Goldrit. He developed the theory of constraints, or TOC, which, like you just mentioned, it would be used to identify significant limiting factors or bottlenecks in the workflow. So I feel like once this guy did that, that just set the tone for industrial engineering of the future. Like now, all
Mm-hmm.
they do is find those bottlenecks and try and make things run more
I,
smoothly.
I feel like you're a bottleneck sometimes.
I mean, that was
I mean,
hurtful, but
admittedly, you're a bottleneck to our listeners getting any of their stickers.
that's true.
Wow,
I
I
think
really,
I think I have 20 of them sitting there that I need to
I
send.
so just threw you under the bus. I'm sorry. So James,
Off the top of your head.
off the top of your head, what would you say an industrial engineer does?
Okay, so just off the top of my head, Luke, I'd say industrial engineering is like a branch of engineering, kind of like mechanical, but worse, that
Yeah.
involves figuring out how to make or do things better. So that's nice of them. Industrial engineers are usually concerned with reducing production costs, increasing efficiency, improving the quality of products and services. They like to ensure worker health and safety, and protecting the environment and complying to government regulations. Because who doesn't like complying with government regulations?
It's what I
They,
do in my spare time.
oh
Just
yeah,
saying.
as well you should. They work to eliminate waste of time, money, materials, energy, and other commodities. Off the top of my head.
Top of your head. So a couple things that they might do. Again,
Let's hear it.
off the top of my head. So you might review a production schedule, engineering specifications, some process workflow. You might want to look at the manufacturing parts and products and delivery of services to maximize efficiency inside of a production line. You might develop management control systems to make financial planning and cost analysis more efficient. You might enact quality control procedures to resolve production problems and minimize costs. You may even design control systems to coordinate activities and product planning in order to ensure products meet quality standards. And you may confer, I've been wanting to say that word for years, with clients about product specifications, about vendor purchase components, management personnel, and manufacturing capabilities to make sure that all projects stay on task.
That was really well said,
And
Luke.
that was not a cut and paste from the Department of Bureau Labor and Statistics.
Something
Just
else
saying.
you might do as an industrial engineer is make comics out of little Lego figures, because that's something that my brother does.
So is your brother a practicing industrial engineer?
Yes.
So like he went to school for that and he does that for a living.
Correct.
Okay.
I get the feeling that he's like maybe just a smidge more practicing industrial engineer than I am a practicing mechanical engineer. So that's how I think that's going.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah. that
Okay,
works for me.
so before we go on, I think we should probably take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I'm assuming it has to be, I don't know, we didn't mention anybody's names yet.
Wherever my brother works, maybe they're sponsoring
Wherever your
me.
brother works.
No, they are not sponsoring us. We don't have a sponsor, Luke.
You better have shout outs.
Gosh, do I have a shout out for you.
we
Jacob
go.
F. from Oregon, a manufacturing engineer tech major at Oregon Tech. I think
nice.
Oregon Tech is a place that the Fusion 360 folks have or used to have a real tight relationship with. Maybe I'm
okay.
wrong, but this is based in Portland, so you and I have probably driven past it many times. Love
I'm
Portland.
sure.
So Jacob says he loves the podcast. Thanks for keeping engineers and enthusiasts entertained. He'd like an episode on a day in the life of an engineer, which I liked that. And then he went on where you would ask different types of engineers what their typical day looks like, and then condense their story and share it on the podcast. And that's where he kind of lost me because, man, does that sound like a lot of work.
It does. And usually, as being an engineer, part of what I do is try to avoid work. So
And talking to people.
and talking to people other than James. So
Yeah.
sorry, Jacob. We might not be able to pull that one off.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add it to the list, but that one might fall fall on the list. But I appreciate it, Jacob. If any of you have any other ideas that you'd like us to research that doesn't involve talking to other humans, or if you would like some of our sweet stickers, if you just want to say hi, whatever the case may be, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us reviews on iTunes or Screencast, or I don't even know the names of the podcast places. Wherever you happen to listen or watch what we do, make sure you review, like, comment. It always helps, and we appreciate each and every one.
You nailed that, Luke.
That was
You
very
nailed that.
heartfelt.
It came from the heart. I could tell.
It did.
Speaking of coming from the heart, here's a list of the top, I'm going to say 11 actually, best colleges in the U.S. for industrial engineering.
Yeah, I know why you went to 11.
Okay, so number 1, Luke. Do you have this list as well by chance?
This was on that best schools
on U.S. News?
list.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's usnews.com if you want to go check it out. So number 1, Georgia Tech, which I was surprised
Tech.
by. I know they're a great engineering school, but $14K.
I'll do some of the prices.
Cheap.
14 in-state, 30 out-of-state.
What a great deal. Even out-of-state, that's really good.
It's actually not bad compared to some of the other ones.
Did you see number 2, Michigan? Michigan
27
University.
in-state, which is almost the same as out-of-state for the
make
number 1
sense.
school. Doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. $51K a year if you're out-of-state.
Maybe you have to pay all that money because of your mediocre football team. I don't know. Burn. Cal Berkeley comes in at number 3.
11 grand in-state, pretty good. Not
Really
bad.
cheap.
California's always been really good for in-state education. Out-of-state's actually not bad either. It's actually one of the better priced ones. It's only 26 out-of-state.
Yeah, another good deal. That's cheaper than going to Michigan in-state. Cornell.
I didn't see 2. I just saw 29 a year. My guess is
Yeah,
because Cornell's private.
yeah,
it's not
it's
a state
private.
university, so
Which
that's
also,
why.
I mean, 29
29's pretty
seems
good.
reasonable. Northwestern. MIT is down at number 6.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of ties.
Yeah.
And so I have to say, James, I love it when MIT isn't number 1 or number 2 on.
Oh my goodness, yes. How can you? It's like you're rooting for the underdog.
Yeah.
You know, it's like just always root against MIT unless they're playing the sports ball. Then I assume they're probably not very good, unless robots are involved. Okay, so rounding out the list, Purdue, Stanford, Wisconsin, Virginia Tech. I have a lot of friends who went to Virginia Tech. And then at number 11, the Pennsylvania
roll,
State
please.
University. Woo! So my brother went there for his undergrad and master's degree.
So a pretty decent price too. In-state is 23 and some change, so not great, but not terrible. Out-of-state's almost 40K. I do have a question for you though.
Sure.
Me and my wife and my daughter were talking about universities last night. We're talking about Penn State in particular, and I don't know if you know this.
Probably not.
So we did a plastics engineering show the other day, and if you're plastics and you go to Penn State, you go to Erie or Barron. But can you do engineering at any other locations other than plastics or at Penn State Barron or University Park? Like, does some of the other Penn States have engineering, or do you have to go to one of those two?
So what you would do is if you either didn't get accepted to the main campus in State College, or maybe you're just like not emotionally ready to go to the bigger school or whatever the
Like
case may
most
be.
kids.
But yeah, you would end up going to one of the branch campuses. So Erie is an example of one. Du Bois, I think Altoona has one. So a bunch of places around have these branch campuses, and you would go there for 2 years, and that's when you would get your general educations out of the way, your chemistries and bios and physics and all that, and then you would move to the main campus for your 2 years of really focused engineering coursework.
Other than Barron for plastics,
Right,
you can go there all 4 years. Okay,
Correct. Yep.
Just checking.
Yep. So that's how that is. Which I spent all 4 years at the main campus, but I had a lot of friends that went to the various branch campuses and then transferred up. So then I also have a list of the best universities in the world, and this one I did a little bit differently than I did in the past, because normally we cover the same, let's call it 10 from Europe and Asia. This time, I broke it down by continent because Africa needs to get its love. So if you're going for engineering or industrial engineering in particular, I guess, in Africa, you're looking at the University of Cape Town, the University of Pretoria,
Nailed it.
Stellenbosch, University of Nairobi, and the University of South Africa. So those are your top 5 choices in Africa.
Okay.
I don't know where any of those are, except the one sounds like it's in South Africa. So that's helpful. I guess Cape Town is South Africa as well, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so in Europe, a lot of the normal offenders on this list: Cambridge University, the Technical University of Munich, KU Leuven in Belgium, the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, and then, of course, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Switzerland. I think that's been on. Well, I think that's been on every episode that we've done about these. And then in Asia, this one again is a lot of the normal ones that we see. Nanyang Technological University, of course. Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology has been on here before. University of Hong Kong, Peking University, and the University of Tokyo. I know that's been on at least a couple of our lists for international colleges. So for all of our international listeners, Canada and whatnot, those are some great ones for you to choose from. Or just a reminder for our Canadian friends, you can head over to Ferris State University and pay in-state tuition there.
There you go.
Whew. Okay, I feel like I talked a lot there, Luke. What do you want to talk about
did.
next?
So I'd love to talk a little bit about the pay and the job outlook.
Mm-hmm.
So the pay for these cats, it isn't terrible, but it isn't great.
So depending on where I looked, it really varied. But either way, I would say it probably isn't amongst the highest paid engineers.
Yeah. So this is Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So this is a national average. Obviously, if you go to different hotspots where there's a lot of manufacturing and higher demand, you might be able to get a better paying job. But the national average, the national median, so not average, median, is a little over $87,000. The lowest 10% earn about $56K a year, and the highest 10% earn about $32K a year. And I think
132?
I'm sorry, 132. And I think the challenge that you run into with an industrial engineer, and this is my theory, James, and tell me if I'm onto something here. I think because this is typically seen as like a shop floor type of job, like you're kind of in, the grind, we'll say, working on a shop floor, looking at efficiencies. Like you're not necessarily like a typical mechanical engineer where you're just sitting up in your office, just working in an engineering office, 99% of the time. You're probably on a shop floor and you're probably, running around on, fabrication floor or assembly line. I think that might be why it's a little bit lower, because it's considered a little more physical, maybe a little more blue collar. I don't know. I'm not sure why it's less.
So I think you really are onto something. I actually had a little piece of my write-up done that was, what's the workplace for an industrial engineer look like? Because you're exactly right. It's kind of different than most engineers, where a lot of their work time will be spent like split between an office or like the work floor kind of areas. Mm-hmm. So I know my brother, as an example, will often go to a bunch of the different factories that his company has, that he then goes on the work floor and tries to optimize processes and stuff there. But that's exactly right. But when you look at what they're doing as well, they're probably the engineering branch that spends the most time in school working on manufacturing processes as well. So you're going to be taking classes like I took 2 industrial engineering classes. The one that I took that was required was all about stuff on the shop floor, spot welding, the different types of welding, casting, that kind of stuff, which looking back, I really wish I would have known more about. And I wish I would have gotten more hands-on experience with that sort of stuff. But the industrial engineers get a whole lot of that, because you're going to have to be able to relate to people that are doing that for a living, or that are really familiar with those processes, or that's part of what they do. So they get a lot of classwork time on that. So I think you're right. I don't know why that should make them be lower paid engineers. Obviously, civil should be the least paid. Maybe they should pay us.
I think they should. They should.
Fair enough. Okay. Before we move on, Luke, should we take a break for this week's Luke's Rant?
Oh yeah, this rant is fresh.
It's fresh.
It is fresh, and we normally, folks, don't like to. I don't like to do a rant that kind of indicates when we recorded, but I can't help. And you may notice there's some slight audio differences in what James and I are doing right now, and so we're recording in the middle of a pandemic, and we
Or epidemic.
Epidemic.
Check out our episode on epidemics.
There you go.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. And James and I are doing our part. We are staying at home as much as possible, only going out for exercise. In my case, because James doesn't.
I do not exercise.
Occasionally, James might walk outside and let his dogs use the bathroom, but that's about it.
That's it.
So we're doing our part. We're not getting together. We're recording remotely, so there might be some technical things there. But here's my rant, James. I've been looking for Smucker's natural peanut butter for over a month. And apparently, peanut butter is kind of like toilet paper during a pandemic.
I could see that.
Where I guess because it's a stable shelf life, lasts forever, high protein, whatever it is.
And if you have kids, I mean, that has to be a staple.
And I am a huge peanut butter snob. There's one peanut butter that I like.
Oh, what a shock.
I know. It's Smucker's Natural Creamy Peanut Butter. It's the best peanut butter on the face of the earth, and I can't find it. And do you know how irritating it is when I go from, a couple spoonfuls of peanut butter a day to none? It's like, it's cold turkey, James.
No wonder you've been so grumpy.
It's inhuman. So my rant, all of you people out there who are hoarding Smucker's Natural Peanut Butter, email us. I'll get you my address. I need some peanut butter.
Wow. That was a
Sorry.
bold call out. I did not know Smucker's made peanut butter.
Oh,
when this is all over, maybe I'll have to pick up a jar.
So there was a list, and maybe one of these days we'll do one of these, but it was the best peanut butters tested, and Smucker's Natural Creamy was at the top of the list.
Interesting. You know what I really like and also really dislike is if you have, I don't know how Smucker's does it, but the normal Jif is it, and
Yep.
Peter Pan, and you lift off that seal and it has that perfectly smooth surface. I love that. But when when the foil is touched and it disrupts that perfect surface, it makes me so mad. I lose out on knifing into it. Oh.
You're very OCD.
Yeah, I hate it. Okay, moving on real quick. Some of the classwork that you would take as an industrial engineer in training. Information systems, engineering management, engineering economy, barf, product design, manufacturing processes, facilities layouts, material handling, human factors, statistics and regression analysis. So you're feeling like all this kind of stuff that you were talking about, Luke, getting those factory floors optimized, getting people to be safer on the work floor, stuff like that, machining metals, stuff like that, lots of engineering economics. But my brother said those were two of his tough ones, was the metal machining and the engineering economics. And I was like, that seems kind of weird because machining metals classes weren't all that tough. And he's like, oh yeah, I was just not interested, so I didn't really go to them. And I'm like, well, that doesn't count as being the toughest one.
I feel like these cats end up being a little bit of, kind of jack of all trade, master of none. Like they know a little bit about everything so that they can dig in and optimize that particular part. But this isn't the person you would want, running the CNC machine themselves. Like they might be able to look over a machinist's shoulder and be like, hey, if you did this and stood here and, you programmed this and then did this next, we could get this. I feel like that's more what they do than knowing the nuts and bolts of everything. It's just it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I know I've mentioned my internship at Sylvania, the light bulb factory, multiple times on the podcast. But what I was hired on for was industrial engineering work. So almost everything that I did was doing time studies. How much time is some guy spending getting glass from one spot, bringing it over to another spot, figuring out breakage, trying to do time saving, stuff like that. So yeah, it was interesting, but certainly you wouldn't have trusted me to run any of the machinery or anything like that. So
I wouldn't trust you to do much of anything.
You literally don't trust me to set up our machinery for this, like a microphone. So
I wonder if there's this rub between industrial engineers and like people that are making like I think of our Amazon episode where we talked about how Amazon does fulfillment, and it's predominantly robotic. There's a lot of people in there, but
They must employ a ton of IEs.
Yeah, I would think that they do, but would they employ an IE, or would they employ a programmer that's just going to run a program
Maybe
to
both.
look at efficiencies?
I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, I know a lot of what my brother does is software based, so I
Okay.
bet the IE runs some of that. So I know you talked a little bit about what they do. I had a few more things that I wanted to throw in there. So like they figure out how to manufacture parts and products or deliver the services with maximum efficiency. They develop management control systems for making financial planning and cost analysis more effective and efficient. All of these sound terrible to me, by the way. The how do you move heavy parts within a manufacturing plant safely?
Ask Luke.
Ask Luke because he's really strong and he would
Yep.
just do that. But if it's me, I would pull my back out. And then the one that, I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff, but the one that I really have a problem with is evaluating how well people do their jobs.
Ooh.
And this goes back to like my internship where I was watching some guy who had been working the same machine for probably 20 years. And here's this, maybe I was 19, 20-year-old kid sitting there watching every light bulb that broke and blaming it on him and saying, you could have been standing here to not have as many broken light bulbs, or you could have walked over here and not have taken these extra steps. Like, what a terrible job to have
Oh, my
to tell
goodness.
all these folks how bad they are.
Meanwhile, this guy Stanley you were watching, probably fought in like multiple wars, and could have been your grandfather, and here you're telling him where to stand and how to hold light bulbs.
It wasn't ideal, no. Oh,
So,
did you,
good.
what did you have next? Go ahead.
So I have a couple things about the job outlook and
Yeah.
maybe some licensing, certifications, and registrations. So the job outlook is actually better than a mechanical, which surprises me.
That
and maybe
really
that's
surprises
and
me.
maybe it's a bit of this automation you see happening. So there's this big buzz going around with software and fabrication and pretty much all engineering. This idea of automating processes to get more
taking our
efficient.
jobs, yeah.
Exactly. So that might be why, and you need more industrial engineers to kind of manage and coordinate some of this automation that might be happening. So their job outlook through 2028 is an 8% growth.
8? That's the highest I've heard.
For mechanicals, it's only like 5%. So it's a full 3% above mechanical engineering. And my guess is it's because it's kind of specialized.
I was thinking it's because mechanicals have already done such a good job of designing everything you could possibly design.
That's one angle.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's an option. It's an option. So licensing isn't necessarily required for an entry level position. Is your brother a PE?
He is not, no.
He is not. Okay. So you don't need it for entry level stuff, but if you want to typically be like an independent contractor, if you want to, perhaps run a department of industrial engineers, or if you're like the big dog responsible for like process automation at an organization, I think that a lot of cases they are PEs. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Real quick on the PE, Luke, I know a number of people have written in asking us to do an episode on the PE or the FE, and they both kind of give me like bad flashbacks of just even thinking about them. So I'm guessing we probably never will do that, or maybe we'll get worn down eventually. But like you just said, to sum it up, like anyone who's getting their PE is going to be the person that's signing off on stuff.
Yeah,
so
you're
like
not doing a lot of the work.
Yeah, like all civils are going to end up having it.
Yeah.
But if you're that independent guy, if you're the one signing off way up at the top, you're going to have to be a PE so you can stamp things.
Well, and the PE just basically takes that burden and responsibility is all they really do. Because I would bet unless you're like a small company and you're a PE, I would bet at a bigger company, it's just they need someone to be responsible for
They
it.
do, but then they also have to carry insurance on you as well.
Yeah. So a couple other things. When you're looking at a school, ensure that it is an ABET accredited engineering program. And that's kind of typical for all engineering disciplines. But I don't think we've ever mentioned that specifically on the show. Just make sure it's an accredited engineering program. Make sure that you get a passing score, whatever that means.
Don't fail
on,
out.
on the
Okay.
fundamentals of engineering exam.
Oh, yeah. That's the first step to becoming a PE. Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure, if you can, get some relevant work experience. So make sure you're doing an internship. If you happen to be if you happen to have the opportunity when you're in high school or during the summers in between your college years, if you get the chance, try to go work at an engineering firm, at least loosely related to your discipline. It's going to do wonders for your resume and for job interviewing. And then obviously you need a passing score in your PE exam if you choose to go that route. And then the last thing I had, unless you had anything else, was I had a couple of places in Pittsburgh specifically that were hiring industrial engineers.
So before we get into that, real quick, I just wanted to touch on Six Sigma and ISO 9000 because I guess this is all things the backbone of industrial engineering,
Which
right?
we probably should have done. Maybe we could do each one of those individually as a podcast.
Let's do them as an episode, maybe
I think it's a good
individually.
idea.
So it sounds like they're actually tied together. I thought they were two different methods and you'd only use one of them. Apparently you can use both of them in parallel, where I think Six Sigma it's really all about the scope. So ISO 9000 is a standard that's internationally recognized, and it's for the entire quality management system, as opposed to the limited scope of smaller projects is for Six Sigma kind of thing. So Six Sigma is a discipline of data-driven approaches taken and different methodologies for eliminating defects in any process where you have to have a very, very small, I think it's 3.4 defects per million products created. So
Wow.
yeah, let's add that to our list. I like that one, Luke.
We have 3.4 mess ups per episode.
Per sentence.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Okay, you had one more about job
Yeah.
opportunities.
So last thing. So if you happen to be from Pittsburgh and you are looking for an industrial engineering job, PPG was one of the bigger
course.
places hiring, which kind of makes sense. Honeywell was another one. Interesting. And then finally, Evoca Water, so a water company here in Pittsburgh. So
Never heard of it.
Yeah, and the range for the pay for these was anywhere from $50,000 to about $85,000, depending on your experience. The minute you go outside of Pittsburgh, the pay tends to go up a little bit. Just like
Funny how that is.
I don't know why,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I didn't do any outside of Pittsburgh because it kind of went all over the board. But Pittsburgh,
I think we
was
covered a
definitely
lot of
little
them.
bit lower.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for that. Hopefully all of you enjoyed this episode. Just, covering all the engineering possibilities out there for you to help make a more informed decision, or maybe help you know what kind of money you should be making next time you want to quit your job because your boss is the worst.
Yes.
So if you loved all of this like we did, how about you email us and let us know at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time.
See ya.